them in order now. Okay.
Morning. Yeah. Showing them kind of sideways. Linda, we good? All right, good morning. This is a workshop, and so let me turn it over to the manager. Mr. Manager, if you will take us through the procedures.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I had set this workshop up a couple weeks ago so we could go over some follow-up information on fire ordinance and SPLOST. So we've got staff here today to go over a few things. I did, so you have in front of you, I attached my memorandum to the board on December 22nd, giving the additional fire service fee options. You'll find that in the packet first. And then you had asked for additional information as it related to certain costs. So what I'm going to have Assistant County Manager Linda Kramer to walk through some of the slides that she has, and then we'll begin discussion.
All right.
Linda. All right.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, so just to get us started, in mid-December, the board approved this agreement with Chatham Emergency Services, whereby they would provide fire protection in parts of the unincorporated county. And our goal in levying a tax or assessing a fee to residents or businesses that benefit from this service is to pay for the cost of the contract. So that's really the big picture we're in right now. The board fronted $6 million to pay for this contract from January to June. And then staff understood that after that time period, we would have a fee or a tax in place to pay for the contract. So that's where we are. And we think that'll be about, I don't know, $11–12 million annually. Could be more. We're working with CES on their budget now. In the December 22nd memo, there were 4 revenue options provided to the board. 3 were fees, and the 4th was a tax. So we wanted to kind of go through each one of these with you to get you set and make sure you understand what we're looking at. The first fee was a fire fee based on square footage of land and structures, and the rates increase based on increases in square footage. So the larger your property or the larger your structure is, you would have a higher rate. And churches and schools have a 50% discount, so they pay half of the fee. And that rate table is found in your slides, handouts. I'm gonna put it up. Well, just look up. Okay, we'll look at that one. This option, you have to look at 2 tables to figure out your rate. In this option, the top part of this rate chart is for land, and it's based on acreage, and there is a fee for acreage. And then there's a fee based on square footage, and we bracketed it into kind of ranges, because when we were looking at this option, we were talking with the Board of Assessors about could we use this on a tax bill, and they recommended brackets. So we don't do like square footage, 1 square foot equals some rate. We had to break it up into brackets. So you see the building structures on the bottom of that. So we'll go over how you calculate this in a minute. Okay. The second option is based on square footage of structures only. And here again, you can see the square footage on the left side of the chart and the rate on the right side of that chart. Now, these rates are higher than what you saw for the structures previously, because we have to spread the cost of this contract. And when you take the land out, it changes what the rate would be. So you see rates based on square footage of structures here. Again, as you go up in number of square feet, your rate's going to change and increase. And under this option, you've got churches and schools with a 50% discount. Okay, the next option we costed up is a flat fee. And we came up with a $400 fee, which could be spread to everybody and should cover what we understood to be the cost of the contract at that time. Out of these 3 options, when we compared it to what we understood the billings to be that CES had, the first option had less negative impacts in terms of increased rates. Options 2 and 3 had a little bit higher rate structure for most people, and I'll show you that in a minute.
Let me ask,
Yeah.
when you say all parcels at
Turn the
400,
mic on. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, magically came on.
when you say all parcels, so if you had a parcel that had no structure, that would be a $400 or not?
That's only on structures, parcels with structures.
That $400 number was
Yes.
derived with structures,
Only
parcels with structures only?
structures, yes.
Okay,
So
just
if
wanted
you
to
have
be-
vacant land, there is no fee assessed under option 3. Yeah, option 4 is the fire tax based on values, and that is, what we've been talking about with the board, where you would need to levy a millage rate against the values of the property. The way CES has been doing their billing, they kind of take this approach, but they get the value of the land and the value of the structure separately, and they have 2 different rates that they apply to calculate their bills. So there's an option there that if you go with a tax, you could either have a flat millage rate for land and structures, or you could break that up. So, but to do that, that's the one that we're like on the precipice here, because we have to do programming if we're going to do a tax. That's going to require some programming on the part of Board of Assessors, who's in the audience, and our tax commissioner, who is also in the audience. So those are your 4 options. Now, we came up with some examples for you of cost. And if you look in the packet from the 22nd of December, there's some charts that support the fee options that are in here. And they have a number of parcels in there. So what I've done on this slide is pulled the most common values out of these packets. So the most common parcel size is a parcel up to half an acre, basically. We had about 24,000, a little bit over 24,000 parcels in that size range in what we understood in the service area are 69% of the parcels. So when I show you these rates, we're using that parcel size. The structure size, the most common was 1,000 to 1,999, almost 2,000 square foot structure, and there was about 49% of the structures in the fire district. And then our most kind of common fair market value of a home is around $200,000, and that gives you a taxable value of $80,000, because that's 40% of the value of the home. So when we costing up the tax, we're gonna use the fair market value of the home. When we're looking at option one, we're going to look at the parcel sizes of the land and then the size of the structure. When we look at the fee for option two, we're just looking at the structure size. And then, of course, the flat fee of $400 is just $400. Yep.
All right, here's a question from Commissioner Whiteley first.
I know
and
we're
then-
doing math. Y'all gotta follow me.
Yes, ma'am. Well,
And I
I'm
have
trying
some
to carry the
experts
one.
here.
So, with the last two options, is there a specific reason we're not including land?
Yes, because we heard from the board they didn't want to.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
So we, we costed them up.
and then,
We could go back and pull land into the flat fee pretty easily. They're like 3,900. Alan's looking. Alan Cantrell here is the whiz on the computer, him and Jeannie all day from internal audit. There's over between 3,000 and 4,000 parcels without structures.
just parcels of
Land
land?
with, yeah, unimproved parcels, I believe,
No structures.
yeah.
Okay, you finished?
And then, one last question, Mr. Chairman. What was, and this may be more for Chatham Emergency Services, but what was their budget? If they had a 100% collection rate, or at least a 90% collection rate, what would that budget be for
I think it was
services?
initially presented at around 11 million,
11 mil?
yeah, 11 million.
Okay, and then one last question. The rate of, I know inflation happens, cost of living increases. Roughly, what would that rate, if you had to maybe either assign a percentage or however you guys calculate it, what does that increase look like annually?
Well, they're coming in with a $12 million budget in
Yeah.
discussion now, and that's based on increased salaries.
Increased workers' comp
And they have a
hit
lot
them
of
pretty hard,
insurance.
and we're looking
Okay.
at their entire budget. We met with them a few days ago, so we're analyzing that now.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the reason I ask is because I'm just trying to think about, okay, if we were to do a fee, of course, we're gonna have to increase it over time.
Right.
And then we don't want it to just get astronomical, but at the same
Right.
time, if we do tax, that's, your property values are increasing, which could cause that to increase. And, but the other part is, if property values decrease, then we're gonna have to come out of our coffers to fund that. But, thanks
Yeah.
for the info.
I think the first year it's gonna be a little iffy.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how it plays out. So under.
No, answer, let Commissioner
sorry.
Milton.
I'm sorry,
I
Commissioner
just
Miller.
have one question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, have you applied option one to a structure or a land and structure and how did that come up with the option that you're using, option one or either option two, to what they had been billed previously?
We have their billing file, and once we determine what we're looking at, we can do comparatives based on, who those taxpayers or who those customers are. We've been trying to that's how we know that most of the bills in option one are a little bit more level set, based on our understanding of
So
what
it's
they
kind
were
of
billed.
close to what they had been being billed?
Yeah, it's, some people pay a little more, some people pay less. I think under that option, I think it's listed in here. I'm talking off the top of my head, so let me pull it. On the side here, there's some pros and cons. On that one, they had the least disparity. 51% would have an increase, but 75% was less than $100 on that option. So you can see impact to current, on the side here, impact to current billing, it kind of talks to that point that you're asking about. So on the first one, which is the land and square footage, that produced the least amount of disparity between this fee and the current billing structure. On the second one, because you're removing the land out, it had a higher impact and increase in the assessment. So we had 96% that were residential increases. And then the $400 also had a lot of disparity too. And this is why, because I'm using these common examples here to compute. Under option, yeah, I'm doing math, so I'm going back to my chart.
So, so how does that apply with the churches and the schools?
Well, which one? Which one?
With either option?
The options 1 and 2, the churches and schools would have a 50% discount
50% discount, 50%
From-
discount of what?
of the rate. Option 3, there is no discount because everybody's paying a flat fee. And then, of course, under a tax levy, they're exempt, so they're not paying, you know.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
thank you.
tax equity.
This is,
A lot. It's a lot. It's complicated.
I'm sure you had a lot of fun doing this.
Oh, yeah, well, I did. I had good help there.
Let's before you move, let's get on from, now let me say Commissioner Stone and Commissioner Kicklighter are on Zoom, all right? And Commissioner Stone and Commissioner Kicklighter, when you have a question, please just go ahead and voice it out, and then I'll put you in order. Commissioner Stone has a question.
I can't hear.
You're muted.
I was having problems with mine, the computer.
Okay, I've got it now. Was Chatham Fire and EMS running a deficit when we took over? Or, in other words, are we playing catch-up a little bit?
I don't think so.
Okay, because, I mean, it was my understanding that once all of the other parcels that had not been paying this fire tax would be paying it, it would be more cost-effective for everyone. So I'm a little curious as to how these numbers are still pretty high if you're calculating everyone now having to pay for fire service.
I believe when they first came in here, it was like an $8 million budget, and now it's $11 million. And I can't speak to their math other than looking at salaries and number of people and the budget they presented. So that's part of the budget process we're going through now, is vetting
Well, I
their
think
numbers.
that's kind of important to know. That's a
Sure.
pretty big gap. I mean, I need to know that.
Okay.
What is it you need to know?
The gap between what they were originally requesting and what they're saying it's gonna cost now.
That is part of the analysis. Remember, we just got the budget last week. So we're going through that now, so we need to do the analysis and bring that back. And obviously, it's in pretty, detail. So we've sent back a number of questions from, I think, internal audit and finance, looking at a number of things. So we'll be able to bring that to you in short order.
Well, that would be very helpful.
Yes.
Commissioner Whiteley wants to know why can't they just tell us as to what their budget was last time? It was $8 million, right? And then, right, and the new one they're coming in is $11 million. And what the
That's
staff
the-
is, and what the staff is
That's-
saying to us is they've got to find out what the disparity is themselves. They don't know.
Well,
And
Mr. Chair-
but listen, here's what I'm saying to all of us, all right? I think if we can get them in to give us all of the numbers, then we can come up with a better answer. Audit has to have, before they can make a determination, they have to have the numbers, don't they?
Well, that's what the budget committee is doing
That's what the
now.
budget committee is doing now, all right, as to why. I mean, we can ask them if that's what you want to do, and we can ask them to come up as to why their budget was $8 million last year and it's $11 million going forward. I mean, yeah,
Okay, I think
and
that's
the
their
first
revenue
thing that
budget.
comes to my mind,
Yeah, Mr.
it's
Chairman.
about fuel tax and the rest of it.
Mr. Chairman, we do have Phil Coster with CES, if he could just give a brief, but I will say this would be in generalities because we are analyzing the budget, and that difference of 8 million to 11, that's, anyway.
Well,
go
and
ahead,
I
Joey.
understand, and I appreciate it.
Sure. At a high level, I think there's one small misnomer. Our income was 8 million. Our budget was 11. You know, the budget we presented now is at upper 12s because of a variety of reasons, but I think there's just a little confusion. The income was at 8 million because of the subscription issue. Our budget's been at 11.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Stone, did we get all of your questions?
I believe so. I'll wait and see what the county comes up with at a later time, but I was just wondering where that gap was.
Okay,
Thank you.
Income versus actual budget.
right.
That's why they came to us, because they weren't collecting what the budget was.
And what I hope we will do is not put anything on the agenda to pass until we get all the facts. All right? I know that there's some stuff that's on the agenda for this coming Friday that's tabled. I hope we let it stay on the table until we get all the facts, because we don't know all the facts. All right? And they just now getting into the budget process as to income was $8 million, budget was $11 million. And so, when we look at what their income is and what their costs and stuff is, how do we make that determination except we get all those facts? And the only way we can be fair to staff is to allow them to go through the auditing process to see whether that's correct or not, because we may get into budgeting and find out that $11 million is not the right number. Yeah, maybe 12 or 13. So, anything else from Commissioner Stone?
That answers my question for the moment. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, let's go ahead, Ms. Kramer.
Okay, so here's some math. Using those common values with option one, the $25 would be the rate on a parcel with under half an acre. So the $25 plus the fee for the structure would be $150, so that's a $175 fee. Now, if you had a bigger parcel, your parcel number would be different. So, for example, if you had an acre of property, you would have a $100 parcel fee. So it's just going to depend on the size of your parcel and the size of your structure. Option two is a flat rate on the structure size. Well, not a flat rate, but an incremental rate based on structure size. So in the common example, which is 1,000 to around 1,999 square feet, that's a $275 fee. Under option three, that's the flat fee. That's your $400 on a parcel with structures. And then option four would be a millage levy. And right now, we're just using 3.7 mils because that's kind of what we are seeing, but it's not final. We don't have all the info in. So that millage rate would be a $200,000 home. At 40% is $80,000, so the tax rate on that would be $296. So that's just a comparison. So they're going to float. So y'all can go home. Your homework assignment is go home, figure out your friends and neighbors, do a little chart, and come up with rates for them.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other question in reference to the,
Commissioner Whiteley.
this would more so be for anybody who knows. Wasn't there like a wildfire in Bloomingdale a couple weeks ago? Was that on parcels of land?
Yeah.
So I think, I'm talking to y'all as my colleagues, we may want to consider some sort of rate for the land. I'm not sure what the cost would have been to put out said wildfire, but had it kept coming, we'd have a bigger issue on our hands. So I think, I don't remember us saying that we didn't want to cost out land, but considering that we're not California, but Bloomingdale just had a wildfire on parcels of land without structures involved, we should consider levying whether it be a per acre flat rate or something like that in addition to the square footage. So the per acre for just parcels of land with no structures on it, and then a square footage if you have the square footage. I think we would be wise to consider that at a minimum.
And see, that raised a question to me now, all right? Here's what question that raised to me. Suppose I have a structure on my land, all right? My structure only covers 1/3 of my land, all right? My structure catch on fire, all right, and it burns out, burns to the ground. But then it also set off a fire across the rest of my 30 acres or my 20 acres or my 10 acres or my acre and a half. Now, you telling me because I only paid for the structure that you're not gonna put out the land? See, which means it may run to my neighbor, or it may run down the part that's not covered. See, so that's the question that raised, when you raised your question, that's the question that raised to me. If we only talking about covering the structure, all right, and we only charging for the structure, now what happens if the structure sets the land on fire? And so so now the acreage is on fire, like in Bloomingdale, because fire don't stop, all right? I just spent the weekend with the city of Savannah with a fire they can't stop.
Well, one thing we could probably consider then, and Linda, stop me if I'm getting too deep in the weeds, no pun intended, but if we did a structure up to an acre, so when you pay for your structure, it covers your structure up to an acre, but then if you have additional acreage, then there's a flat rate. I do understand that there, half of the fires that were fought last year were just on ground, not on structure. So maybe if we said, okay, I don't know, my question would be, I guess, whether it be for Mr. Conley or Linda, how easy or simple would it be to calculate that, you know? I'm assuming when you see on the property card, yeah, you see how many acres it is. So if we're saying the square footage for your structure, and that counts for the structure up to 1 acre, but then any additional acreage, we have a flat rate that just carries on. So if you have no structures, you're paying that flat rate based on the amount of acres that you have, or excuse me, per acre rate. And then would that be, how simple would that be to actually put together? Would we have to hire more people to be able to calculate that stuff? Because I don't want to stretch y'all too thin either.
Well,
Go ahead, and then
first
we'll
of all,
see if I need broader.
the fee is gonna be something that falls under the county manager based on the ordinance we're looking at. The tax assessor, they have data in their system about parcel size. They have data in their system about structure size. So we will be working with them every year to pull that data down if we're doing a fee. But as far as any programming or billing, unless it's billed through the tax commissioner, we probably don't need to do a lot of programming in their system if it falls out under the county manager. So we can pull that data and we can do some analysis.
What do y'all think about that, though?
So like an acre of land right now in this first option is basically $100, you know. So we could take off the 2 bottom rates there. I think what you're saying
option one?
is, yeah, I think you're saying 0 to 1 acre would be, you know, or 0 to 1 acre would be, or 0, in this case, 0 to 3 acres would be $100. I think
And
that's what I
anything
heard you
above
say.
that sets,
And then you have the structure on top
nominal
of it.
rate, you know, I make something up, it was $2.50 an acre, I mean, what, $2
Something.
I don't know, we just
Yeah,
have to look at
and
it.
here, you know, you see when you have a lot of property at the top end here, the rates are pretty high. So that's something we want to look at too with you. But some of these are apartment buildings and things like that that haven't really been paying,
Have not.
according to
been paying,
CES, paying
most
their
of them.
rates. So we can pull these out pretty easy and see what type of properties they are, because there are not that many of them, right, Alan? There's just a few in those top categories.
The bulk of
So,
those
yeah,
are
but
out
we
in
can definitely look at that.
Georgetown, they don't pay,
Yeah. Well, to pay
and
now.
catch on fire occasionally, so, as we know.
Commissioner Farrell.
Could we get some information, you know, maybe in the last year or two, you know, what percentage of the fire department's time was on brush fires, if you want to call them that? And also, how involved Georgia Forestry Commission was in putting out the forest fire, since they're the ones that are supposed to put out the acreage fires in the first place.
We can get that from them, I think.
I'm doing sign language back there in the back to see, let me ask Phil right quick.
Just for some background.
You should have got a seat in the front, Mr. Coster.
I'm gonna set him over here. Okay, he was saying 40 to 50% of all calls were open land. But he would have to pull and look at how much time was spent.
Right.
Because in those cases, remember, it's not just CES, it would be other department, like Bloomingdale. You'd have Bloomingdale, you may have Forestry Service. You see what I'm saying? It takes a conglomerate many times to capture a large wildfire. So I'm just saying there's some factors, but we can find out what the time was.
But there's a difference between the wildfires and then structure fires.
Oh, that's why we're saying that was
That-
just on
right.
the open property.
Right. See, even if, like, for instance, if lightning strikes an open lot, or open area, and those trees and that grass and all that burn, that falls under forestry? Or is that
Well, a
gonna
lot of
fall-
times
is
they're,
that gonna
as I
fall
understand
under-
it, first responders, but
Right.
according to the type of property, how if you get into these large, like our, Bungart Conservation, we're gonna have forestry because they've got the equipment to cut the fire lanes, that's what they do. And they may be assisted by, fire departments. you
What
know.
they'll do is they'll circle around with a bulldozer and a fire break, and they'll contain the fire and let it burn out.
Okay.
And that's what large acreage, generally, if it's out of control. A lot of people do controlled burnings if they're smart, and that way it never becomes a raging forest fire. You burn it every few years to burn off the material.
Okay,
so that-
but my concern is, who gonna pay?
Georgia,
The Georgia Fire,
Georgia Forestry.
Forestry gonna pay?
yeah.
They gonna pay themselves, or
Well,
we
or the
already have 'em
landowner
in-
gonna pay, or?
We already have them in
How
the
does this
budget,
fit
and the
in,
state
how does
pays
this
them.
fit in what we talking about?
We have a line, it's not very much, but we do have some Forest Service, and the remainder of that would be through the state of Georgia.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We just had a fire up 95,
Yes,
somewhere, and it was a brush fire.
Mhm.
It
Right.
just burned.
yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes that's what they have to do, as Commissioner
Just let it
Farrell
burn
said.
off.
But sometimes if they're small enough and endangering homes, of course, you're gonna do what you can to protect property. So
Right.
it depends. It depends on the type of fire and where it is.
And your right-of-ways are not gonna be paying any kind of fire fee or fire tax anyway. So when we come up with this fee structure, it's a way to raise enough money. If a car catches on fire, we're not gonna try to capture every penny from every possible scenario. We are trying to have a sustainable funding system to have a fire department that responds to whatever's out there,
I will say, Mr. Chairman, in working with CES over the last couple of years, because we've been talking for 2.5, 3 years, they do have an issue on unincorporated, I-95, state highways. Good example, a car fire.
Yeah.
They go out and do that, are not paid for it. So there were several $100,000 in expenses by CES that they were not reimbursed for, not included in subscription. So we're now having to back into that because that is a real cost for them that would be included, which right now they were eating that. And we've had lots of discussion about that somebody needed to be paying it because it was costing them as a private nonprofit. They had to go.
Well, perhaps that per acre, for the large swaths of land, or acreage with no structures on it, could offer that cushion.
See,
Possibly, I don't
I did a quick calculation, just for instance, just to mitigate so we got 3,849 parcels with no structures. If we charged each one of them, let's say we went with option 3 with a flat fee, that would raise, at $400, that would raise $1,539,600. And it wouldn't be, I don't think you'd get a lot of pushback from a guy that owns 10 acres or 50 acres or 100 acres for $400. You send a man with 100 acres that he's had in his family for 50 years, and all of a sudden he's got to pay $7,500 a year. That's more than, that's a lot of money every single year. And you're asking him to do a lot, and he's like, hey, I might not even, my place catches on fire, it's, a good steward of your land. You burn off your property, you take proper steps along and along to make sure that you don't have a big financial loss, that your forest products, your pine straw, your timber, your trees don't take a total loss. So that's, so that's a possibility that, we could kind of get a little bit out of the out of some parcels but not so much that there would be pushback and, you know, that it would be a big, because each one of these items, when you're looking at the most common denominator of 50-60%, what about the outlanders? What about the 40% that doesn't fit that nice little example, and they're paying $7,500 or $15,000 a year for fire service? All of a sudden, you know, that's a big burden on folks. And, you know, people that own land, they have a hard time keeping it because, you know, all the expenses that come in, taxes and what have you. And if we, you know, if this thing is too big, you know, it'd make it more difficult for folks to hold on to their property that may have been handed down for generations.
I think
Or they
that's
may
fair.
have just bought it, who knows, but whatever.
That flat rate for acreage and then a per square foot, a square footage for structures, I think that's probably the fairest, that we'd be able to manage without pricing out some of our elderly citizens whose income doesn't increase, and stuff like that.
That's option 2, right?
Yeah, well, what we're talking about is kind of like, option 1, really. It's like the land, but we're saying more of a flat rate for the land as opposed to a bracket, and then the square footage for the,
It's almost option 1 as a hybrid.
Right.
Yeah.
Option
And
1.
I think as
A.
Beta, right.
as a budget meeting, that's what we're here for, to look at different options and different combinations to come up with something that's
So we have the
fair to
methodology.
everybody, but it's sustainable and that we can get it each year and we can keep the fire department fighting fires and not chasing dollars.
And after the first year or two, we begin to have a history of, does building this way work? Does it
Right.
not work? Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to change entirely? Is our methodology right at all? And then that's what we'd have to do, but that's pretty common in any business you start. And this is like our starting an enterprise.
Right.
It should
And-
pay for itself.
And like I say, you might not capture everything. What if Henderson golf course catches on fire? Are we gonna fund it? You know, what's there over there? 50 acres, 100 acres? You know, I don't know. You know,
Please don't
does
let
the
that
fairway
No,
gonna
no.
catch on fire
No,
in the
no.
swamp?
Knock on wood, sir.
Well, see, that's one of the things that, when I was reading through the options, when I got to option 4, and they're talking about that flat rate, all right? And then I looked at what it says, and as it stands now, am I correct in, what is 63 or 68% of the folks
We'll see it
would be
increase.
paying more
Yeah,
than they
69.
paying now? It's like
Correct.
60 some,
That's correct.
see, now that concerns me.
But that's, where we're not saying everybody pays a flat rate.
That's
The
not
flat
option
rate
four,
would
that's
only be
option three.
assigned to the just vacant.
No, they were asked by Commissioner Kicklighter to look at just doing a flat fee,
Yeah.
a flat rate
Across the board.
across the board.
And this is what I'm saying. And we haven't got the numbers yet, but let's just say you take that $400 fee,
Right.
but now, that's just with structures. But if you add the 3,849 parcels that have nothing and have them pay the same flat fee, whether they're 10 acres or 100 acres or 5 acres or whatever, all of a sudden, you're gonna lower that number because now you've got more participation. You got 3,849 participants, so that 400, I'm sure Linda could crunch that number real quick, would probably come down to 350 or something, or whatever.
The human calculator.
We do have access to those people that own those parcels to inform them that they need to pay.
Well, the ordinance that we passed said that we're gonna go after them if they don't pay. The county will.
Which is why we need to have a very fair and equitable system for all property owners and all people that are subject to this fee.
I was wrong.
That, we have not adopted that
Fee.
ordinance
Right.
yet.
Adopted a tax.
Right.
We adopted a tax
Tax.
in January. Now, you can leave it out there, but you would have to repeal it and bring the one forward, and that's why we were trying to bring something forward to you. If you want the fee, no matter how we calculate it, we've got to have that in place before we can begin anything before our folks, particularly in the assessor's office, can look at programming, all, you know. So, and I'm staring at a April 1st, April 8th for, I think, you guys, is that the time, Robert? I'm trying to
The
remember.
attorney sent us a letter that says
Yeah.
April the 8th.
Yeah, so it's 1st of April, we've got to have something in place so they can get their work done, because they've got to get our overall digest to us for budget.
So help me understand then, because I thought we were here where we are now, reassessing, because initially the thought was, with the understanding was that the tax commissioner would not collect a fee on our behalf, because she can't enforce a fee, so to speak. But after more conversations that she spoke to us at our last meeting, that she would potentially do it on a different sheet of paper, so to speak, or a different mailing, to collect a fee. But, we would probably still have to go after those who don't pay, because they would not be they would be in violation of the ordinance that we passed. Because I thought we passed a fire,
I was just asking,
No,
Mr.
but
Conley
were last.
to click.
No, but we certainly
wait.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go through this, but what we, and just talking to Mr. Conley, if you go with the flat rate, they continue the digest other than knowing who we send bills to.
right,
Doesn't affect them.
So, that would be my,
And then we're looking at a recommendation from county staff that we then do an RFP for a billing company outside of our structure, so we don't have to hire people. Because if the tax commissioner, she's gonna have additional work. And,
that means benefits.
so we would like to cost it out and see what is the most effective, cost-effective for us to do.
And when you're talking cost effective, we gotta be careful on trust effectiveness too. I mean, you got all
Well,
kind
that's,
of
look,
companies.
welcome the
people
governor,
collect
he
that
don't
don't
trust us
collect.
anyway.
Big Dave's discount
Yeah.
bill collector.
Yeah, because they take a percentage of what they collect.
Oh, yeah, well, we gotta pay no matter what we do.
well,
Yeah,
I would think that the tax commissioner's office would be the go-to place, but we'll see what you come
Well,
up with.
and but that's going, again, and what the staff is telling us, when you look at that, you know, you can probably say up front that the tax commissioner's office may be the one, but if the tax commissioner's got to hire more staff, it's more than just salary. Because now you're talking about benefits, and you're talking about the mail outs, and you're talking about, so what you need to do, and this is what I say, and I continue to say, we need to get all of the avenues on the table so that we can read through what we're seeing and what we're talking about. Because there may be some costs in there. For instance, if she hires more staff, now you got to do all the benefit stuff. You see, when you do all the benefit
30%.
things, you know,
we gotta look at all
just
of it.
don't give us a number off the top of your head.
Our big thing is I'll say our number one is staff. Now, we're really in the weeds now.
Right.
You know, as you said, pardon the pun and the wildfires. But what we're looking for is, if it's a fee and you choose the flat and the flat, then I know where I'm going. And we get this fee, we've got to have this ordinance in place before I can do anything and bring before you. But, you know, we're looking for methodology and an ordinance so we can begin work. And the RFP and all this other stuff will happen.
Square footage and flat is what
All right.
is my vote if we were having.
Yeah.
Let's go to Commissioner Farrell now.
Yeah, I think that everybody needs some clarity, and I would recommend that we direct staff as a commission to go with the fee. We'll figure out the nuances of the fee. And that way, the tax commissioner is not burdened with wondering whether there's gonna be a millage on there. And then we go with that and mimic the subscription as close as we can and come up with the best methodology that we can. And then, you know, that way we're not messing up the timeline of them. And meanwhile, y'all can work on an ordinance so that Andre can collect our fee money when somebody thinks they're gonna play that old game of not paying their subscription, they're gonna pay their fee, okay? So they can try it if they want, but, you know, we're gonna assume 100% collection or 99.9% collection when we come up with this rate.
And
That-
then,
that-
and then when you assume that it's gonna be 100% collection, and we find ourselves in the same shape that, the fire department said, that 30% ain't paying, so now we gotta go to court. So now, does that require us hiring another attorney? Or does that hire us, or do we establish a collection department?
When-
Or,
when-
you know, all
I
those
have a
things,
question.
When we
all
take
those
somebody,
things gotta be on the table,
when we
okay?
take somebody to court, not only are they gonna have to pay the fee, but then they gotta pay all these extra things. So a person with comical sense.
Somebody might wanna fight you all the way.
Well, that's
let me-
okay, but they gonna pay more.
Let me go to Commissioner Kicklighter, all right? Because come on, Commissioner Kicklighter, you got the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I was wondering, what's the percentage of the people that's not paying the, dry trash pickup fee? Because it's being billed out the same way that we're talking about billing this service out. So what is that percentage? Is it high or low?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, our revenue auditors has just did some it's the first time, that's why we now have hired a revenue auditor. Found out that close to 800 parcels have not been paying at all. They were not being billed. So now we're cleaning that up, plus non-payers. So on non-payers, do we have anything on that? Yeah, it's on the tax bill, so.
It's on the tax bill, but it's as just a separate fee, right?
Yes,
But now,
Okay, so,
State statute called
by,
allows that.
yeah, by
remember
legislation,
that there's a state statute that requires that,
yes,
so,
wherein you
Wouldn't
don't
the
have
percent-
one that require this.
yeah. And
so
giving the
wouldn't the
tax
percentage
commissioner
most
the
likely
ability
be
to
close to
collect.
the same?
I'm sorry, say that again, I'm sorry.
Wouldn't that percentage most likely be close to the same? That
Don't know.
people would consider it legally, about the same way?
I'm not gonna speculate because it's a different calculation. We also have, we already know, we've been contacted by parcel owners, large parcel owners, large homeowners, and I'm gonna get in trouble with the attorneys who've said as soon as we put this in place, they're gonna file suit. That it's not legal, and they've quoted now, a couple of counties, that have now lost the lawsuits, and they've had to pay back millions of dollars back to taxpayers. So we know that's coming
For a fee or for a tax?
for a fee. I know, that's what I said last week, that's when I had 2 migraines. Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Kicklighter, are you finished? Or you still have more, you haven't gotten an answer to your question yet?
I just, we don't know
If
how
I
to
did not get
answer.
an answer,
Well-
and I think it would be pertinent to the, what we're talking about here, because I believe
How to
that
answer.
All right,
the response would be very similar, and I think if we can do what Commissioner Farrell said and move along forward as far as deciding to collect a fee, but still working towards a fair, basically just do more due diligence and make it a little bit more fair, capping off maybe the acreage, making it a fair payment. I don't think we would have backlash from developers and such as that, as long as we keep moving towards it being a fair fee. So, that's it.
no, let me ask, I wanna ask something that was said. Now, you said we just, started with someone who looked at the dry trash fee and found out what percentage was not being paid because they were not being billed?
Well, we found some, yeah.
All right, go over that again.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's my
let me
question.
get Jeannie, if you would, let me
Yeah,
get my
who-
internal
who-
auditor.
Yeah, okay.
I want her to come up and explain, because there's a lot of moving pieces in this that we're really trying to get straight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I want to add to your question, you start talking about the 800 parcels that have not, is that with dry trash?
That's what we're,
Or is that
that's
with-
what she's
That's
gonna
what
talk to
auditing
you
is
about right
doing.
now.
That's with dry trash?
that's what auditing is
And
doing.
Mr. Chairman, this
That's
is
a whole
Jeannie.
nother subject, but okay.
Yeah, let her explain it. Well, see, Commissioner
I gotta
Kicklighter
ask,
said,
so
can
I
you
feel
do it
like
the
I need to
same way?
clear it up.
All right, and so those are instances where you didn't know it was happening
And that's why we're
until
doing
auditing started looking at it, until
doing
we
these
started.
revenue audits
Right.
is bringing about a lot of money. but
Right.
People haven't been paying certain things. So I'm bringing up Jeannie all day, our Director of Internal Audit.
All right, go ahead.
All right, we have an audit underway. It is not completed yet on the dry trash fee. Comparison of properties per the ordinance that should fall under it compared to who was being billed. And there is a discrepancy out there. The complete number is not finished yet in the audit, but somewhere, around the 500 to 800 number of properties that there's a discrepancy of properties that per the ordinance should have been billed that have not been being billed.
That's why we're going, we're coming. Yeah. And-
Reaction, I mean, now that's just on the dry trash, right?
Well, that's on dry trash, and I will just tell you, a lot of that, and Commissioner Stone will totally understand this. When we have these condos or townhomes, they're not multifamily. They're owned individually. They should be paying individually, but sometimes it's seen as one unit, and that's by the ordinance. There has to be something done. So that's what they're clearing up now, and there are a lot of those. So we're having to clear that up.
So in your auditing, are you also able to look at who was being billed for the fire subscription?
No, that's CES.
That's totally different, but we have been involved in modeling and comparing the bills, but that's not the same thing.
Okay, are we good on dry trash?
No, wait a minute. Did I hear something from Commissioner Kicklight or Commissioner Stone? Somebody was trying to say something? Or that was just background noise?
No, actually, I do have a question. When
Okay.
they were talking about what is being billed, in other words, what is on the tax bill versus what is actually being collected, those are two different things, right?
Right,
Exactly.
right.
That's exactly the answer I'd like.
See, and that's what they were telling you, that
Right.
when you talk about the dry trash fee, all right, there are some folks who are not getting billed. And that number could be somewhere between 500 and 800. That's what auditing is finding out. Come on, stay back up here so you can explain it better than I can explain. I'm just going by what y'all told me. I want y'all to tell them what y'all told me.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, the point I was trying to make, and Commissioner Stone just tried to clarify for me, was, let's say on dry trash pickup, we actually forget this part about what we're gonna collect in the future that wasn't billed. Let's say we sent out $1,000 bill total. How much money did we receive? Did we receive $900 back out of 1,000? Or did we receive 1,000 out of 1,000? That's the question
So
that
he's
would
asking
let
the
us as
collection rate.
commissioners know the
98
possible response we would have on the other fee.
The tax commissioners confirmed that the collections of that gets sent out is collected at a rate of 98%.
But that is a
And
tax.
that is a tax.
It's not a fee.
It was not a tax, it was a
Well,
fee.
but it's on the tax bill. So I will tell you, in my escrow, do you know what happens? My trash fee, which is by legislation, is on that bill and is paid through my escrow. And I will tell you, if you look at yours and you have escrow, that's how it's being paid. But some pay it individually. You wait till the end of the year and pay your bill, and most people come in and pay it, as Commissioner Farrell has said. But the fire fee is a different deal. It's different. It's not on your, this will not, be on your tax bill.
Why could it not be at a later date itemized on the tax bill, on the back? I understand the time constraints now, but why would that not be possible for the future?
Well-
To have it listed separate on the back of the bill?
It could be done, but and I can't speak for the tax commissioner, but we have received in writing, and she was here and visited the last meeting and said that was not her preference. Because of the inability to collect it by law. And am I correct, ma'am? She nodded and said I'm correct, so I'm careful what I say. I don't want to misspeak.
Now, Commissioner Kicklighter, are you asking that and saying that if the tax commissioner is the one who sends out the bill, perhaps we'll have a better collection rate, even though it wouldn't be on the tax bill?
Yeah, because we're asking her to send out the bill no matter what. but it would be, at this point, they're discussing that bill actually being a separate bill other than the property tax bill.
Or
But
it could be,
like the dry trash is included in that property tax bill. So that's, my question is why not in the future be able to include it in that, just like they
but
do
it,
with
it could be on the second installment.
exactly.
It would have to be a different sheet of paper though, because the tax commissioner has indicated to us in writing that she won't put it on the actual tax bill.
And then the other part of that too is we can ask our legislators to write legislation to make it possible to put it on the tax bill.
But no, but we wouldn't, I think we
That's
all have to
future.
understand, we cannot put the fire fee on the tax bill.
On the tax bill,
On that
right.
one sheet of paper that has the tax bill, the fire fee cannot go on there.
Right.
Now, the tax commissioner has said that she would be willing to send out a separate bill for the fire fee. And what staff is saying that if we do that, we have to consider what cost increase that the tax commissioner's office may incur by bringing on staff, or allotting staff to be able to do that.
Postage, all those kind of things.
Right.
Sure.
And then the other part is it would still fall on us to collect. Now, just be clear, because I know I'm not crazy. The fire protection ordinance, from December 3rd, did we just not pass that? Did we take that off?
That's a tax.
No, the fire protection ordinance is just saying that you have to have fire service.
I'm gonna have
Yes.
Andre, if he would, go through that, please.
So what we did on that meeting is, it was first reader and second reader, it was said we don't wanna approve that one, we wanna go with the tax
tax.
instead.
Gotcha.
So then we rewrote to make it a tax, then we had the special meeting, so it was never approved. We would have to redo it. Now, what I did,
As a fee.
under the fee option, because the tax would be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
If we put it under the fee, what I did for Friday's meeting is I gave you the two options. You could do a late fee, or you could do the ordinance that requires them to have that, along with the, the fines and things that can go with that. So that's on that. So what we would have to do on Friday would be to repeal the tax and then go with the fire fee.
Got it.
And it has those penalties in there.
Right. Yeah, because we had the language, and I know we were discussing, well, a fine up to $500 per day or stuff like that was too much. So we did not pass that because we opted to go with the tax option. But now that the tax option, we're at least generally have a general consensus that we don't want to do a tax if we don't have to. If we could do a fee, let's do a fee. And staff has to tell us basically what the cost to do a fee is going to be. And I think staff is asking us for direction to just say flat rate, or square footage, flat rate. When I say square footage for structures, flat rate for just swaths of land, or what? So then they can go and do that. Am I correct?
That was an awesome executive summary. And thank you.
So I'll stop. I'll be quiet. My
No, you can't
vote.
be quiet.
Yeah, you're right. My vote will be structure. No. We have to give them some kind of direction, though, y'all. And so if we had to vote today, I would recommend that we do the square footage for structures and then a flat rate for land without structures on it.
See, and what I'm saying to us is, we've got one that's on the table, right? Let's get all that information in before we even bother with what's on the table. Let it stay there until we know exactly what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do.
Well,
And
that was,
whether we can
They're-
balance that out the way
They're
you're
on the
saying.
table now, so, you
so those
you just have to
options are on the
decide.
table.
Right.
Yeah,
What
one
we're
on the
saying
table.
today, or proposing today, is
Only-
basically option one with a little tweak to it.
Well,
Get all the tweaks in first.
I think that the flat rate and what I've heard from people talking about this is the square footage
That's it right
and a flat rate for the land. I think that was what I sent back to, Mr. Kramer, about my option and how I thought that
And
my people were trying to get this. They would rather have square footage and probably a flat rate for the land opposed
Yeah.
to
you
putting
do
all that
have
in.
the first reader out to repeal tax, put the fee option in place. Now, when you do that, we then can say, so your methodology is this way. We'll go, great. And then we go out and we do that. But ordinance gives me the vehicle by which to move forward, pardon the pun.
Okay, anything else?
Now, we gotta give them some direction of.
Exactly, exactly, that's,
So are we gonna repeal the tax?
well, listen, you can't do that right now.
No, I know we
Yeah.
can't, but we have to give them direction.
But here's what I'm saying to us. We have to get together and come together as to what directions we gonna give them, all right? And you
And
can't
I'll
do
be
that,
on-
you can't do that in this setting, okay? Because we don't wanna violate no laws, or we don't wanna get in no trouble. So what we're gonna have to do is get back with staff and give them direction so that they can bring something in. Then everything that needs to be repealed, we can repeal it. Everything that needs to be first reader, we can put it in first reader, and then we can do public notice and all the rest of it. Am I correct in the step-ins?
Yes,
Okay.
because what we do as staff is when we hear general consensus of, or things from individuals. So I now and the staff, we've kind of nodded at each other, have an avenue by which we have a first reader, do the second reader, and if there's discussion at that time, but get the ordinance in place, I hear the methodology, and we'll clean that up, and at that second reader, we'll say this is how we're gonna roll.
All right,
So that means we're done with the timeline, the April 8th, we're not trying to meet that timeline?
No.
Okay.
You can't meet it. And let me ask this now for procedure, if we come back and do the first reader, all right? And then we get ready for the second reader, is there gotta be a public hearing, or is there just have to be people who wanna sign up and sign up and speak?
If you choose.
So we on the right page?
You
We can do it either way?
That's a choice of the board and the
Okay,
chair.
so that means that in our discussion, all right, that we make sure what we want to do. Or do we want to do the first reading, have public hearing, and then do the second reading and pass it? Or do we want to do the first reading, get to the second reading, and then have anybody who wants to speak?
They need to
Because
come in
I'm
early.
gonna tell you now, all
Come
right?
in early, let 'em
You
come
don't
in
see me
early.
with my laptop, right? And it's because I've been shut out of my emails and all my text messages since the 15th. And they started working on it yesterday, and it's still not straight. But yesterday, when they were able to get me back into my email, I've got 189 I gotta respond to. All right, so Gail thought something was wrong with me, huh? Yours too? Listen, y'all need to where IT, I think they're supposed to be in the building, because they're supposed to be working on, my phone and stuff still not working right like it's supposed to. And I think we're changing some kind of system, aren't we? There's a change in the system or something?
I will say this as not to expose too much. We have tightened our cybersecurity very much, and I hired
Right.
someone from the military. So he has, right, and he has tightened her down. So there could be things such as, that was my issue. When it got ready to go out, it stopped. It
Right.
went, well, wait a minute, you've got an attachment here that could be a problem. So
Right.
we're having to loosen it up, but to those out here who want to come in, I didn't say that.
So I'm just saying, I'm just telling all of you now, have your equipment checked, because you don't see me with none of mine. It's because IT's been working with mine since yesterday, okay? So, but I do know, when I was able to look at some stuff yesterday, there were some emails in there from folks about the fire fee, fire tax situation. So, I think it is incumbent upon all of us, check with your constituents, and y'all know everybody is my constituent, so that's why I tell them, they can send me an email or they can send me a text message, because that's my responsibility. But before we can get to giving staff direction on what we're gonna do with this fire fee, fire tax, let's make sure we know what we're doing, and let's make sure we get all the facts, all right? Then we can make an intelligent decision, okay? And then we can decide how we're going to do what we're going to do, so that they'll have directions on what's going on and what they're doing now. Okay, so that's where we are right now. We got it? Okay?
I would say the staff understands.
Okay. All right, so we look for you all to get back with us, but I know that there's some things on there about the fire fee, fire tax this Friday, and I don't think we ought to tackle it without the information.
I think we need information.
That's my point. I don't think we ought to tackle it without the information. Let's get the information so that when things go out, they go out correctly, okay? Now, anything else along this lines?
I'm sorry, I'm asking about procedure.
Okay.
Confirmed by the clerk, and she's the certified expert, that, and she really is, that we've had a first reader that's been out there 2 times tabled, so we basically let it sit. And then if you don't, is it 2 more times? Set for 2 more, and then it would fall off the table. Unless you took some other, I think that's hilarious too, but anyway, it falls off the table.
We may just
So
have to let it.
we'll bring that up
We may just
Friday.
have to let it fall and pick it up later. But the thing is getting to the facts of.
But
what's
we've got
going on.
direction now of what to bring to you,
Okay.
what to put in place, what to do as a first reader, and second reader with backup data.
All right, all
Okay.
good?
Yes, sir.
All right. You have SPOS on here? Okay, that's fine.
All right, moving to, the next subject. You know, we ran out of time last time, and I believe my speaker today and presenter, is my, head of engineering, Miss Suzanne Cooler, and she's got some other support folks, and we've got some other staff who are here if you get into questions, specifics. So I'll ask Suzanne if she would to go through this at, this time, and good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was giving the press time to come get their microphones, but there, it doesn't seem they're doing it. Yes, so good morning. I'm going to go through the SPOS program. And the SPOS program, when I talk about the SPOS program, I'm talking about all the SPOS from SPOS 1 through current, which is SPOS 7. I've changed the format of this. I hope it's not so boring. It's not just a bunch of tables, but I am going to do a lot of speaking. So if you have questions in the middle, just stop me and ask them, because you don't want to listen to me talk for a whole lot of time. A couple of things that I'm going to clarify as we get into this, though, is one, if we talk about amounts that are remaining in budgets and revenue in the budgets, this is back from February. This is always moving. We're collecting revenue each month and we're spending money each month, so the numbers aren't going to be exactly the same today as they were in February, but it gives you, a general understanding of the condition of the program. So when we talk about SPOS revenue, we will look at it from each individual SPOS, and then this is the collections.
Mr. Chairman, can I confirm
Oh.
that our 2 on Zoom can see
Oh,
the
yes.
slides?
Commissioner
Yes.
Kicklighter, okay.
Okay,
Commissioner
Great.
Kicklighter,
Yeah.
can you see the slides?
we lost it.
I heard from Commissioner Stone. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
All right.
what
Sorry.
happened?
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Kicklighter's back. Anyway, so what we're looking at collected from the beginning of SPOS collections to current as of February is a collection of over $2 billion total revenue. Now, when we talk about revenue, we talk about it in tax collection, which was 1.8 billion total collections, and then also investment revenue. So we're talking about 2 different types of revenue when we talk about total SPOS. And I just want to make that distinction that it's not all collected taxes. Our finance director has done a great job of investing our revenue and getting us good investment. You can see here that just in SPOS 1 alone, we've earned $69 million in investment earnings. So we're doing really well on investing that revenue and getting a really good return on our investments. And then you'll notice in early SPLOST, the county produced most of the projects, and therefore most of that revenue stayed with the county and in those projects. Then as we got into the later SPLOST, we worked out a different distribution, and more started going to the municipalities to produce their own projects. And so when we talk about revenue, I'm going to talk specifically about that for unincorporated.
Let me interrupt you 1 minute, okay? I need to leave this chair, okay? Because I've got a call again from Washington. Like, I don't want y'all to say I stormed out like you did last time, all right? But I got a call for DC, all right? So
Right.
I'm gonna slip out, all right, like I did last time, all right? But I'm coming back. Yeah, I know you got plenty of call. Everybody thought I stormed out, but that call from DC was more important than this. I'm saying the same thing now. I'm coming back, all right? But I gotta go to DC.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the clarification. So when I talk about SPLOST revenue, I'm talking specifically about the amount that is kept in the unincorporated or for the county to spend, and not that goes to the municipalities. So as of February, you can see here that we had some money left in each of the SPLOST. Again, this is directly contributed to that investment revenue in most cases for the earlier SPLOST. But as you will see, it's still, we have spent a lot of money on capital improvements in this county as a direct relation to SPLOST projects. SPLOST 1, we did begin collections in 1985. But that was a transportation / road only SPLOST. We have spent 99% of our $287 million in revenue. We do have that $4 million remaining, again, from investment earnings. So the other thing I wanted to clarify is when I talk about listed projects are projects that are specifically named and listed in a referendum. Those projects we are required to complete. If it's deemed that a project is infeasible for a certain reason, we have to go back to the taxpayers to have them vote on whether they want that money back or want to repurpose that money. We can't just use it on another project, but we are required by law to complete projects that are specifically listed on a referendum. So I will talk about projects in two types, a listed project versus an additional project. When I say additional project, I mean it wasn't specifically listed by name on a referendum, but we did add it per general categories that were listed on a referendum. So in SPLOST 1, we did complete all projects that were listed. We have added additional projects in the meantime, and we have these 5 projects that are remaining. Robert McCorkle Bike Trail, although actually originally completed in SPLOST 1, we are now going back to rebuild it. So that's why it's an additional project. That construction is underway finally. Johnny Mercer Road, we are making intersection improvements, adding a signal, operational improvements at Lyman Hall and Johnny Mercer Boulevard Road. Skidaway Road, this project is currently under design. We're going to make pedestrian and operational improvements in the commercial area between Ferguson and Montgomery Cross Road. We're not going to touch the residential properties per direction by the previous board. So we're going to stick specifically to that commercial area. Lansing Avenue, we are going to make some traffic calming improvements. We've had difficulty recently letting road projects specifically with petroleum prices like they are, with contractors being extremely busy. We put this out to bid twice. The bids came in pretty high, so ultimately we put it on our resurfacing contract. Well, we met with the residents after that, and now we're considering other options that the residents in the area asked us to consider additional options. So, yes, Commissioner Lockett's familiar with that. He met out there with the residents. And so that's a project that's going to be addressed, but right now we're looking at other options that the community has asked us to look at.
Ms. Cooler, so with the Well, I'm sorry, you still have Willow Lakes Drive, the last
Yes.
project. What's that, what do those total up as far as budget-wise? Will there be any money left in that, basically these new added projects to that SPOS, fund, do they take up the rest of the money?
Yes.
Okay.
And so unless something changes and we come in under budget on any of them, we're looking at
That's
spending
highly
up the
unlikely
rest.
right now.
And no. In fact, our last few bids have come in quite significantly over estimates, so.
And so now, just to let you know, we now have projects out where contractors, we can't get a single bid because they will not lock the prices in on product.
Yeah.
So
Certain
it's
products
but
change.
welcome to the world, so it's not unique.
We're gonna have to get started on some of the big SPOS projects, 7.
In SPOS 2, we began collections for SPOS 2 in 1993. This one, we expanded beyond roads and moved into drainage, recreational, cultural, historical projects. We have 1% of this remaining, again, directly attributed to that investment revenue. You can see here we have, just over 2 million left in this SPOS. All listed projects were complete. We do have an additional project, and that is for youth football. We're currently looking at improvements at Ambuck, where they use those for practice fields, and then to make improvements to Soldier Field. Soldier Field is, we're currently having discussions with CSX on some property issues out there. And once we get those situated, we're gonna get rolling on that project. So we hope to have that complete by the end of next year, just in case we get into lengthy property discussions. And SPOS 3, we began collections 1998. Again, again, this is multiple type projects. And this one, we do have 18% of our funds remaining. You'll see some big projects in here that'll explain that. We have 31 million still remaining in SPOS 3. 2 of those projects are actual listed projects.
What project? What kind?
Listed on the referendum. One is Little Hearst Canal project for $1.5 million. This project, we put it out to bid. The bids came back that were significantly higher than our budget would allow. There was the reasoning being that it requires some coordination with the railroad on some crossing upgrades, and contractors are nervous about working with the railroad and the uncertainty in that. So staff has gone back to try to tighten the scope, get a better understanding or a better agreement from the railroad and clean that up so that there's less uncertainty for contractors, hopefully to bring costs down. Because originally it was, you're not gonna get a return on your investment if we had continued with what we had gotten in the bid. The benefits just didn't outweigh the costs. Eisenhower widening and median improvements. This is to, there's still $3.5 million left in this. This project was to widen and make improvements on that section of Eisenhower from White Bluff to Waters Avenue. We did start design on this project. We had a design. We were getting into right-of-way acquisition. This project's solely located in the city of Savannah. We had some difficulties coordinating with the city, whereas the city's desire to have the project complete was not the same as the county's desire to have the project complete. And we ran into some right-of-way acquisition problems with that project. And so therefore the project was put on hold. So now we really need to decide. We have a couple of options for how to move forward, but the board will have to decide on how they want to do that. We can look back at the scope and do some more coordination with the city and see if we can't come up with a scope that we can all agree on, that's feasible. We can go back to the voters, and there's some concern with declaring it infeasible because the law does say you can't declare it infeasible just because you don't have the money to do it, or if the right-of-way is too difficult to purchase. So I don't even know if we could declare it infeasible. The attorney will have to make that decision, but that may be one option where we can go back to the voters and say it's just infeasible. Here, we want to either repurpose or give you this money back. Or we give the project to the city and let the city complete the project, but since it is solely in the city, and tell them it was a referendum project, you must complete it. So there are a couple of options to move forward on that, which we'll have to do to close out that SPLOST. And then, of course, we had some added projects. The added projects include Ashley Road drainage improvements. This is on Wilmington Island, and this is to divert stormwater runoff to a new outfall. This project, we hope to be complete by the end of the year, but it all depends on permission or access to city property, which we've not been real successful in negotiating with the city. And so we're hoping that we'll get that clarified, and don't laugh, and get that project moving forward. Pipe Makers Canal and GPA improvements. We do have $1 million in this SPLOST for improvements to Pipe Makers Canal. These improvements we see as to improve and to mitigate the impacts of Georgia Ports Authority. Georgia Ports Authority, as you know, has grown significantly, continues to grow. They are exempt from federal regulation in meeting our stormwater requirements, and therefore although they directly impact our infrastructure, they don't necessarily have to mitigate those impacts. They have, in a good number of cases, coordinated with us and helped, but they don't in all cases when it becomes obstructive to what they want to do. And therefore, we've got this project that will mitigate some of those impacts to that floodplain. We're working through some options and designs, and we hope to have that stuff complete by the end of next year.
By when?
The end of next year, 23. Lewis Mills Branch Phase 3 is also, you'll see on your drainage report referred to as Marshall Branch Drainage, and this is an outfall from Garrard Avenue, which we met with the property owner. That project, we're going to improve that canal, some crossings, put in a maintenance road on that canal, because part of the problem now is Public Works can't get in to maintain it. Trees fall in, and it's causing backups. That is currently under design by staff, internal staff. We do have some wetland permitting that has to be done. So right now we're looking at completion by the end of 23. We hope it'll be sooner, but it's going to depend on what that wetland permitting, how that goes.
But work is being done now?
Yes. Yes, we're designing and we've begun the permitting for that, so.
Thank you for that.
And we did
Make people
previously
happy.
purchase easements for it, so we don't see that any property acquisition will be a problem, because we did purchase easements for that. Westlake Drainage Diversion, you'll see this in a couple of SPLOST, but that's to divert runoff in that Westlake area. As you may be familiar, there has been known flooding problems in that area. This is a significant project that requires a lot of coordination between the railroads and a couple of jurisdictions, so it's a big one, and we expect that to be complete in 26. It's going to take a while to get all the right-of-way design, coordination done.
I got a question, because we have had several complaints about those apartments that are back there and how the water rises so that when people drive up in their driveway, parking lot, they can't get out because the water's standing. So is this gonna
Yes.
add some relief?
This will give relief to that.
Okay, thank you.
And then across the river, you may hear talk of Slip 1 and the river walk on Hutchinson. The county did invest money in that project. We got reimbursed for the river walk itself by One Georgia, but the dredging to accommodate a marina is underway. They're removing debris now. And that'll be complete by the end of this year. We also had road, street, and bridge projects added in this SPLOST. One is Quaco Road improvements. This is in multiple SPLOST, but because it's a significant project, but we are widening it to 3 lanes, making pedestrian improvements. We did turn lanes at 17. We've completed actually right-of-way acquisition as of recent, and we're getting ready to start on phase 1, which will be utility relocations for that. The overall completion of that is by the end of '23. Dulaney Road improvements, we're gonna rebuild and reconstruct the shoulders with concrete. There's a problem now, the ongoing maintenance issues, because heavy trucks come in, pull off the road there, and break down the road because it was inadequate shoulders. So we're gonna go in and make rebuild those out of concrete so the heavy trucks aren't tearing up the road and we're not making continuous maintenance or having to come out there. I-16 Little Neck, Jimmy DeLoach Interchange. This is to construct a new interchange at that I-16 Little Neck Road where the new Jimmy DeLoach Parkway comes in. We've started preliminary design, we've started doing our concepts on that. We did get some federal funds to the tune of $1.9 million to help with this, to help us with the preliminary design of that. We do think, and we've started the initial concept on that. We'll just continue to work towards getting that developed, but it'll be a long-going kind of project that'll probably, or most likely, because we're going through that federal process, not complete construction until like 2028. But it's just a long process to get there, since it is a significant and isn't on a federal highway. SPLOST 4, we began construction in 2003. And of that, we have just $12 million, or nearly $13 million, which is 6% of the total revenue for the unincorporated. We have one project that is listed that is not complete on this, and that is Pipe Maker's Canal work, and that's to make those improvements to the drainage basin. This is in multiple funds, and we are comparing costs because this is what we've looked at here is so far all the improvements that we've proposed, and we get back the cost on, we get very minor improvement in the drainage basin that it doesn't really justify the cost of doing the project. If you're only going to see a difference of an inch or two to the flooding, then is it $12 million? Are you really getting that return on investment? Now, the voters did vote to repurpose some of that money. They voted also, we returned $4 million of that in 2013 to the voters. That was, again, like I explained before, if you have a listed project, you can determine it's infeasible, go back to the voters and repurpose or return. We did a combination of both in that case. We continue to look at options there to make sure that we're getting a return on that investment. And we did add 8 additional projects in the SPLOST. 2 are Countywide Drainage and 3 are roads, 2 recreation, and 1 other, as I'll explain. The Countywide Drainage is Omler Loop Woodbridge Drainage, and we're going to make improvements to the canal system, and this is on Wilmington Island. We are actively working on this project and hope that it'll be complete by '24. Isle of Hope Drainage. We've met with property owners out there several times, and we want to make improvements to a channel and improve the access again to give Public Works access to maintain the channel. Staff is working on final plans to begin right-of-way acquisition on that one. now as we speak, so we hope it'll be complete by the end of this year, '22. And then we've got Skidaway Road. Again, I talked about that before. It's in multiple spots, but these are the improvements between Montgomery Crossroad and Ferguson. Right now, we're looking at pedestrian and safety improvements on the commercial, because of, like I said, the previous board wanted us to not impact the residents there with right-of-way acquisitions. US Highway 80 sidewalks, this is Whitmarsh Island. A lot of children walking on this corridor to the schools on Whitmarsh without adequate pedestrian improvements. So we're making the pedestrian improvements to get those kids to school and to those commercial areas safely. We've started right-of-way acquisition on this project already, and so we expect it to be complete by the end of '23. And in unincorporated county roads, we also have $370,000 balance for sidewalk and road improvements. That is there to make various road and sidewalk improvements as they are made aware, or as they become aware to us. Recreation projects, 2 that we will soon mark off the books, yay. McQueen's Trail is nearing completion, luckily. They, looks pretty good that we'll meet the April 1st deadline we put on the contractor to finish that up. They've been working really hard since we put that deadline on them, so look for that to reopen in April. Charlie Brooks Park, we're putting in new baseball fields, multi-purpose fields, parking up and water line upgrades. That construction continues, it is underway. It was a long time coming because we had some permitting issues. There is also money to purchase county equipment and vehicles, which we continue to do. SPOS 5 began collections in 2008. Right now, we have 4% of that revenue remaining, which is just under $10 million. We had 4 listed projects and 20 additional projects in this SPOS. You're familiar with the Courthouse Project, which is underway. I'm going to try to speed through these because it's taking a while. Hitch Library, we have $500,000 balance in this account, which this project set on hold because, as you may be aware, that housing community was demolished and didn't exist, so it's been sitting there. But now we're gonna use this money to add a library at the location of the Early Learning Center, which we're building on that property.
Will the residents of Hitch have access to that library?
Yes, that is the goal.
That is a goal, but there are some security issues we're gonna have to look at during the hours of the Early Learning Center when we have children there. And it would be children and parents. So that's something they're looking for operational and hours, because the library budget would have to cover operations. So it's under discussion. There's a hiccup there, but we're trying to do the best we can, so.
Plus the housing
Securities.
authority, the housing authority have not finished the development plans for that area too, you know.
Yeah, it's
the-
ever changing.
If you know what a barbecue shack is, right?
Randy's.
The Early Learning Center is gonna be right behind that, but then you notice all the area around there is not filled in yet. So the housing authority have to give us the plans for what they're gonna do there when we talk about usage, before we even break ground to build a library. We have to get with the it's the housing authority, city of Savannah, the county, who am I missing?
The Y.
YMCA,
Goodwill's gonna have a center.
Goodwill's gonna have a
yeah.
center. It's gonna be like a mini campus, but
Yeah.
it's a great concept for that area. Great concept.
That's a part of the learning center?
Yes.
No,
Well,
It's gonna
on the
develop
same
off
campus,
of
the learning center is separate, then you'll each have their own, like the Y, and then they'll have a contract, and they have something with, Goodwill, those kind of things, for
And you-
training and those kind of things, so.
And you mentioned the security issue now. All of that's in that area where we got the tiny houses and the homeless and all of that. So all of that's being considered.
That's what you mean by, that's what
Yes.
he means by security
We're
issues.
we're doing the early learning center.
Right.
The other items really fall under the auspice and jurisdiction of those other property owners.
Okay, so that's the other.
It's like a
entity.
subdivision almost, yeah, and we each have a home.
See, so we still have to get with housing authority, because the housing authority actually owns all the property. Even where the learning center is, and they are the owners of the property. But in collaborations with the city and county and others, we're gonna put that early learning center there, and then the things that come off with the Y and the rest of them. All right, so it's when you look at the area that they're trying to do, but yeah, it's not gonna happen until all of the partners come together and decide on how we're gonna do it. But, yeah.
So, it's moving our piece. I can't speak for you.
Don't go there. Go ahead, sir.
So, and then Hardin Canal drainage improvements, what we're looking at here is how can we store stormwater in this basin and to accommodate for it, to reduce flooding, because it isn't practical to think that we're gonna move it all out. Right now, we're looking at how we're gonna store it. This project, we also got funding from you all, from the, ARPA recovery plan.
Yeah, some of us out of offer, yeah.
And so that's why we expect this to be complete by the end of '23, because those funds have a deadline on them. Little Neck Road reconstruction and improvements is also in this SPOST. Right now, we're rebuilding or planning to rebuild Little Neck Road from 17 to Interstate I-95. And we're gonna widen it in that area between 17 and Al Henderson. We're purchasing enough right-of-way so that in the future, if it's warranted and justified, it can be built, the fourth lane can be built, but right now we're not building the fourth lane. As you may know, there's a lot of growth in that area, primarily in other jurisdictions, but the road itself needs to be rebuilt regardless of the growth in the area.
I agree.
We also had 17 additional projects in this SPOS, 6 for drainage. They include Nottingham Canal, that is underway and will be complete by the end of this year. Willow Lakes drainage, this is the first part of that, which we mentioned before about the road project. First, we're getting the drainage complete, and then we're gonna go back and do the roads, but that will upgrade that system to reduce the flooding in that subdivision. That is underway. Brampton outfall, we're making canal improvements for Brampton Road and Dundee Canal. That is more in our long-range plan at the moment, and as you can see, it's not a big balance in there, so it won't complete construction, but it'll get us designed. And Ferguson Winterberry outfall, that's to make improvements from Ferguson through that Winterberry subdivision. That is under design, and we expect the construction to be complete in 2024. And again, Pipe Makers Canal, that's in multiple SPOS, so I've already talked about that. Gateway Henderson, this is to make improvements to that Gateway Henderson drainage basin, which will help that whole entire area. That is not just Henderson neighborhood, but that Gateway at 204 area. That is under design now. Grove Point Road sidewalks, these are to add sidewalks along Grove Point Road from King George Boulevard to Brandy Road. We've begun design on that. That will require right-of-way acquisition, but we do expect to have that complete by the end of '23 if construction costs stabilize by then. Chevis Road, we've begun design already on making improvements to widen lanes, to add pedestrian improvements, improve the drainage, and to put sidewalks between from 17 to Wild Heron. We did get federal funds to help with design for that, and with right-of-way acquisition. So that's a big help for us. And that's underway, but it's gonna take some time because it is federal funding, so we've got to go through that entire environmental process and design process. So to get to actual construction is gonna take some time, but we are actively working on that. Quarterman Drive improvements, this is to add some traffic calming features between 80 and Falligan, and to slow the traffic in the neighborhood. That's a long-range plan, project. We aren't actively working on that at the moment. Diamond Causeway, Green Island Road, we had originally budgeted our design for a roundabout. That's been tabled for now because of the direction by the board. And that money sits there for a future project or improvements to the intersection. We also have money in road resurfacing. This money is used to help match funds that we get from the state to run our resurfacing program, which we do every year. We put out contracts to resurface, and these funds help to meet match for those grants. We also have a few recreation projects. Charlie Brooks Park, I've already talked about that. That's underway. Tom Triplett Park is underway, nearly complete. We're made improvements to the roadway, restrooms, boat ramps. That construction, like I said, is underway. Cannon Field, we have balance there to make park improvements. I should point out that all park improvements that we look at are in relation to what was done for the recreation master plan. So when we look at those park improvements, that we refer back to that.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
With aren't we rebuilding, at Brooksfield, did we rebuild the clubhouse or something like that? Didn't we just, that may have not been a SPLOST project, but
Charlie
aren't we
Brooks?
doing something at Brooks Park?
Yeah,
Is that the one on Wilmington Island?
That is on Wilmington Island. We've got a lot. We've putting in a new water line. We've made some improvements to fields and restrooms. So, yeah.
And then we're using excess money from SPLOST to go and put in a new field, right? So, well, I'm saying this to my colleagues and management. Can we please consider putting some more effort into Scottsdale Park?
I'm getting there.
I see that,
Yeah.
and I see that's about the roadway and stuff like
No,
that,
no,
but
no.
I'm talking about the
I'm
field.
getting there. I'm
No,
getting there.
there's a motor
I'm getting there.
Scottsdale Park.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you,
is a
Jesus.
phase 2 to
Yeah,
Scottsdale.
that's a motor
There
Scottsdale
is.
Park.
And I'm
It's like
getting there, yes.
2 District 6 projects in here.
Yeah, so we're
That's it.
getting there.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Farrell.
I would like to say that this project for Charlie Brooks, for these things, have been budgeted and approved by the board for like well over 10 or 12 years.
Yes,
Yeah.
it has.
Okay,
We
this
had-
goes
That's how
way
slow
back.
we
This
it-
is not just something that fell off the truck last week.
Right, we had some permitting issues with that park that drug that project for
It,
a
it's,
long time.
Recall, some of those properties are built on a landfill.
Right.
And there's some things
Something like that.
we had a number of
Issues.
issues, but
permitting.
to the
was-
public, it's safe.
Right.
There's no issues, things are monitored, this is very common. But whenever you have that, I will give you for instance, on Wilmington landfill, trying to get electric there, you couldn't just pop a hole in there and put up and run electric. It took more than 10 years to get an electric service. Because I was just telling you, it's horrible.
Well, and I understand that, that's why we're getting somebody to try to manage these projects, cause, you know, y'all, we're not gonna have this kind of time to do this stuff. I mean, my understanding is that some of these building materials, you getting 30 days on that quote, and that's a wrap. You know, steel, I think they won't hold it for more than 48 hours at this point. So
Right.
if we don't get rolling on some of this stuff, you know, all of these are gonna price out.
Well, I respectfully disagree with that assessment. It's my professional opinion that the costs are gonna come back down. They're not gonna continue to rise. What we're seeing now is an inflation that's gonna eventually quit inflating and come back down. It's similar to the inflation we saw in the early 2000s, just before the crash. And I'm not saying we're gonna have a crash and not panic or anything, but I'm just saying it's similar to, it's that same, we saw that in the construction industry then. And so we expect the same to happen now. We're seeing
Yeah.
it with the home building the way it is and construction prices the way they are. And, you know, and then part of that is also supply that's been, because of the pandemic, that's gonna come back down. So, it's my personal or professional opinion that those prices are gonna come back down.
Yeah.
So what about staff? Do you have staff in place to see these projects through?
Well, we got an RFP out for somebody to start overseeing SPOS
No, I'm
projects.
talking about workers that are working on these projects now.
Oh,
I mean, that's a reason for delay as well.
Yeah.
But
So, and we'll get there, but, and we'll get there at the end of this, but, you know, part of it is we've also worked towards priorities that were set by a previous board, and so now we're gonna come to you and say, what are your priorities? Because here's how much staff we have, here's what we're doing, and we have a great staff, and they are all working really hard to produce projects. But we want them to be the projects you want to see completed. We don't want to continue down a road that someone else set and.
There we go.
There we go. So yeah, we'll get there, and, you know, as we go through this, not just thinking about these projects, but think about priorities in your districts, because
One thing
we're
you're
gonna
not
come
gonna
back.
do, you ain't gonna throw me under the bus.
No, sir.
But she just said it. She said all in District Five.
District
Mike gonna say all in District Six, and Farrell gonna say all in, and then going 3 and 2. And so now y'all throw me under the bus because I represent all of it. All right? So the thing is, and we must understand, the thing is that when we talk about priority, sometimes priority have to change based upon what happens.
Yeah.
All right?
And the population.
And I will not hang my hat on that rat that says something gonna come down. Okay? Because it may come down and bottom out, but it may keep pushing you up when you waiting on the come down. So the thing is get this information so that we can make an intelligent decision as we move forward. Some of these things, and Commissioner Farrell is right. Charlie Brooks was on there a long time, and we had to take monies that what we call it, earn income?
Investment
Huh?
earnings, investment earnings.
Investment earnings. We had to take investment earnings and put in there because what was put in there was first time was not enough to get the job completed, all right? It's just like the courthouse right now, okay? There's some change orders that had to come through because when you start doing those utilities and you go down in that ground, see, you don't know what you're gonna find, and then all of a sudden the state comes in, the feds come in and said, you gotta do it this way, and so your budget, they'll tell you your budget kinda do the,
Budget buster.
there you go, you can do the upswing. So what you had planned is not planned, so that's why we letting you know that where it is, what it is, and how it is, so that when, I'm a firm believer that when given all factors, then we can make intelligent decisions, all right? And that's with staffing, and that's with the way we do these projects, and that's the way, because this drainage stuff, this drainage stuff was a butt kicker for us, all right?
Continues to be.
And yeah, because, you know, as I said from the beginning, whoever live in Chatham County, I don't care where you live, the water come to your house one day or another. Might don't come every day, but it comes some days. And so that's why we have even reached out on the federal level to help us with some of this stuff, okay? Because it's honestly too much for us to handle. We don't have the resources, but the resources are available, okay? And that's as blunt as I can be. That's all I can say. I got up from here and went back there last time, and we got up and went back there because we got thumbs up on some things that we have asked federally to happen in Chatham County, okay? So That's the most I can say, that's all I'm gonna say, and, we gonna have to wait until the right people get ready to say what exactly that is.
Also, I do have to say, I'm gonna say it at the end, but I'm gonna say it now. I wanna thank Suzanne with her taking the helm over the last couple of years and changing leadership and restructuring. We have more projects going on now than you have in many, many, many years. And it's because of this young lady and her folks upstairs and downstairs getting some things done. They've expedited. So I want to make sure they understand. And the chairman's made it clear. They're getting it done, but we know there's more out there, and we're going to give you not just this RFP, but also internal options, because that's a partnership.
I just want to second that because she's been very helpful,
Oh,
Yeah.
very, very helpful.
they all
They
have.
get it done now.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm the
you.
first one in line to be that cheerleader, all
Well,
right? For what they're doing up there.
Thank you,
But
manager.
I
And
also realize they need help.
Yeah.
We need help. So
I
we
know
need
they-
to realize how we get that help done.
That was my.
Right.
All right, Suzanne.
They've been working very much for the third district, and we appreciate it.
And, well,
Okay.
since you give me kudos, I'm gonna point to Nathaniel Panther. If
Yeah.
you don't know, the assistant county engineer.
knows, yeah.
He does a whole lot. I'm gonna try to, I'm not speeding through these because I'm trying to skim over anything. I got the move it along from Michael, so I'm gonna speed it along.
Getting close to lunchtime.
Stop
you're
me,
gonna lose
stop
the
me if you need more detail. Stop me if you need more detail. We have a Marine Patrol facility that we're looking to design and build for Marine Patrol, and that'll give them not only an office to work out of, but also a place to do the repair on the marine equipment. Public safety and fire equipment, there, we do have a balance there to purchase public safety equipment. Then there's the design of the public safety EOC facility that is underway. We expect to have completion of that by the end of '23. SPLOST 6. I'm moving along. This one, it's newly finished collections, so we do have a good bit of it remaining. We have one referendum project, which is to construct a new library. There's $5 million in that. Right now, we're working with the library board on site selection of that, and once that site is selected, we'll get cranking on that project. We have stormwater drainage projects that have been added to this. One is to help alleviate some problems on Burnside. We have a Wilmington Island Road diversion project. Other countywide drainage projects include the West Side Drainage Study. Right now, staff is reviewing proposals for design of that and to complete that study. So we expect to have it. Right now, we're going to look at evaluating and determining what the extent of the problems are and what we need to do, and that's what they're reviewing the proposals for. We've talked about the Westlake drainage improvements. Got several recreation projects in here. One is to make improvements to Mother Matilda Beasley, the Charlie Brooks, a dog park, Scottsdale. So what you see here is just for phase 1 improvements, and that's to rebuild the road. I believe, I don't know if I'll get into phase 2, but I'll talk about it now. So we also have, right now, we're putting together a proposal or advertising to design for Scottsdale, which will be new tennis, basketball, pickleball courts, and that'll be a covered pavilion, sports pavilion on that site. Yeah. So.
I'm not gonna tell them I live in your district.
The children's garden at the Coastal Georgia Botanical Garden, phase 1 of that is underway. And when we say children's garden, we don't just mean like you come out there and you see what they have now garden. It's a destination. It's for kids to come out. It'll have a play area. It'll be a lot of education worked in. We're under construction for phase 1, and we're looking at proposal to begin design on phase 2 to keep that rolling, because as you'll see, there's money in SPLOST 7 for that, so we want to keep that project rolling. The police precinct, this money right now is there for that Marine Patrol facility that I talked about before.
Do we have a location in mind?
For the Marine Patrol. We've been and we've had several talks and a plan to co-locate where the boat ramp will be on Hutchinson that the Corps has to build as part of the harbor deepening or expansion project. We thought we worked out a deal there, but we've got some issues that have to be worked out with the city. This is one of those coordination with the city things. Before we make that a final, before we complete that. If we work out those issues, then we'll be coming to the board to sign that dedication of the property. We have money for a community center, money for the Civil Rights Museum, which that project is underway. We also had money in this one for the new fleet facility and to replace vehicles. Of course, the fleet facility is complete. We're continue to replace vehicles, and we're going to use this remaining balance for a design on a heavy vehicle facility that'll be located next to the Public Works site. Whereas, all the heavy vehicles are used out of Public Works, so it makes most sense to maintain them next door. Road, streets, and bridges. We have a project now that is under concept to improve the safety for Johnny Mercer at Wall Tower intersection. We're actually having a public meeting on that April 12th from 4 to 6. Yeah, from 4 to 6 at Frank Murray Center. That'll present some of the concepts and ideas that we have and just get feedback from the public. We're not pushing any one of them specifically. We're just here to say this is what we think will be the best plan for this. Again, Quaco Road, we've talked about that. Islands Expressway improvements, this is one where we went out to bid and our bids under current conditions came back at 3 times what the estimates were. So right now we're going to just hold until the market stabilizes a little bit. But we had proposed some operational and safety improvements to intersections along that corridor. Road resurfacing, again, we use these funds to match the grants that we get from the state for resurfacing roads. 7, which is our current SPLOST. We have recently begun collections, or I guess it's been a while now, October 2020. Seems like just yesterday. The estimated collections are $400 million. We're well on our way to meet that. That gives us $113 million for county projects of various types. We got $32.5 for recreation and culture to include a multi-purpose facility, a gymnasium, which will also serve as post-disaster shelter. Existing park upgrades, again, per the master plan that was done for recreation. I mentioned the $2 million for Children's Garden, Phase 2. We also have outdoor multi-purpose fields budgeted in this SPLOST. $1 million for trails and park connectivity. And then another $1 million for libraries. We also had several, $77 million for county facilities to include that fleet heavy vehicle facility that I mentioned.
What about the one we just opened in Garden City?
Yes, that is, yeah. So the way that was designed was originally we were going to put the entire facility next to Public Works. Then the city, I hate to keep beating up on the city said that property's not zoned for it, and therefore you can do that, but you have to do all these other things that made the cost outrageous. Since then, the city has approved rezonings of the properties around it, which we believe now would keep them from requiring those things from us. So we moved to the Garden City site and said, well, which serves the rest of the county and the light vehicles well. That's a great location for that. But for the heavy vehicles, which are used by Public Works, we're going to put this single 1 or 2 bay heavy vehicle facility next to Public Works so that can just serve those heavy vehicles that Public Works uses. like I said, with all the rezoning that the city's done around there, we don't foresee that being an issue now like it was back then. And then we had money in there for Mighty Eighth. As you may know, the county owns the Mighty Eighth facility, and therefore we have money in there for improvements to that. This is to help with that, construct public safety facilities, the Courthouse Project, also for renovations for museums, and the Early Childhood Learning Center, which we talked about previously. I wanted to go ahead and note that this is in partnership with the city. The city also has in their portion of money the same amount of money, so we're doing it in collaboration. Quaco Road, talked about that. Wall Tower, we have money in here to make slope stabilization and to install the sidewalk. Right now, we're seeing that the tides and the marshes come encroaching, and it's going to eventually erode the road and cause a failure if we don't do something. So we're working to do that, start to alleviate that. Garrard Avenue, I don't know if I talked about this already, but we've already started this project. We've gotten some federal funds to start the preliminary engineering on it. So we're going to widen travel lanes and provide pedestrian improvements between Chatham Parkway and Gamble Road. We actually have federal funds for that also to help construct, so that's a benefit to the county that we're seeing. Little Neck Road, I've talked about that. Again, that road resurfacing, which is to match the funds we get from the state for resurfacing. We've also allocated $30 million towards drainage and flood control. Right now, you'll see that we don't have the full 30 allocated at the moment, but we have a couple of projects, and that's at CSX Diversion, which will provide improvements for that Westlake area. And then the others we have that are just right now in a generic group is called Countywide Drainage, and that's where there's some discretion that the board can have in your district on improvements. We've also have money allocated for disaster capital or other CIP and sewer infrastructure, vehicles and safety equipment. We have money for radio tower, towards the fiber network, and 911 dispatch in SPOS 7 as well. So this is what I mentioned before. After hearing all of this and knowing what we've already got planned, knowing what's going on in your district, I would say go ahead and put together or start thinking about and putting together maybe your top 5 priorities for your district. And if we can get all those back together, then we can start adjusting our own priorities, our staff's direction accordingly.
All right, Commissioner Farrell.
I have one very large countywide priority, and that is our big project for this current SPLOS, which is the very large indoor gymnasium with multiple courts for multiple sports. Really anxious to get that off the ground, really anxious to have a site, really anxious to get some drawings and get it going. I think this is the highest profile project that will resonate with the public in a meaningful way and give them positive connotations about SPLOS. To see this project, it's very similar to the Memorial Stadium project, which is very well received throughout the community and very well done by this staff, the
Yes,
implementation.
And I will say that we have begun work on that. We have, through our on-call projects, we've reached out to one of our consultants who is helping with site selection and get through the acquisition, and then to also needs assessment and help with the initial concept for that. So we've already started on that to get that initial concept, site selection, property acquisition underway for that. So.
And I think it's very important when you're looking at the building conception, there's multiple members of this
Agreed.
commission that
Yes,
are
sir.
very interested in having their input on the front end.
Yes,
So that we don't have to stop the bus redirect it and charge off in another direction. So if you could make sure that all interested commissioners have a seat at the table, either individually or as a group, to have their input as this
Yes, sir.
document is being developed, so that we have a really good project that we can all get behind and push over the finish line.
Yes, sir. We heard that feedback during the Parks and Rec presentation and have incorporated that into our scope.
And we've started with, per some of the board members, and we really had already started this, is having staff, I know with Steve and all of his staff at Recreation, we've now brought all of the municipal recreation folks, so they now are talking about operations. I'm meeting with Garden City on a project with the city manager of, could we connect on that and have one project and share things like that. So we're gonna be building that group, but very receptive about combining projects, or at least saying, we'd like to see this, and say, well, okay, Robbie and Puller, if you're gonna build 10 more soccer fields over there, I don't need to do that. I'll build some other type fields, I'll do for lacrosse, whatever.
Right.
You know, and that's being well received in the planning piece.
That's one Chatham, baby.
Could we get, a number of years ago, we passed a resolution along with the school board and the city of Savannah that our staffs would cooperate and get together on items of not having duplication, but working cooperatively with one another to provide recreational opportunities. Could we start getting quarterly reports from you as to where we are with these ongoing discussions with the school board folks and the city of Savannah folks?
Yeah.
Because
That's not a
frankly,
problem.
we passed the resolution and there has been almost crickets and silence as far as public feedback as to how that's going along and your successes and where you need to work harder and that sort of thing.
And a lot of that has to do with, we have to redo that, because some folks have pulled out, or they became silent, and they have meeting schedules, but they don't show up, all right? So
That's
we're
been-
trying to,
And that's what
been
I
a
wanna hear
problem.
at our quarterly report, who's coming, who's not coming, whatever. And perhaps if somebody's not showing
Well,
up,
there's a-
we can
there's a-
speak to our colleagues in the other areas and ask them to, to
right, there's a new
reemphasize.
interest in it now.
Yeah.
And so
You've
that's
had
why,
some leadership changes,
Right.
and again, sometimes when things change, leadership, directors, and Steve Proper and his folks, they begin bringing together, like the city of Savannah, with schools. You're seeing some changes in their org charts and who's in those spots, and now where you couldn't get a return phone call from some places, they're meeting and having lunch and going over stuff, saying, okay, look, can I use that if you use this? Can we, and that's moving forward. So that the window has opened, now I'm waiting for the
Yes.
full door.
One
Yeah,
Chatham
so
recreation.
it's good.
Well, we want the adults to get together for the benefit of all of our children and our
Yes.
youth and our juveniles. They're the
Awesome
ones that are
opportunity.
dependent on us to get this done. And, I implore all the above 18-year-olds to, let's get it done.
okay, is it?
And I did go a little over
Anything
my
else from
hour,
board
but if you have any
members?
questions.
Commissioner Stone, Commissioner Kicklight, anything from you?
I'm good.
All right, thank you all. Oh, Commissioner Rivers, yes, sir.
I did turn it. It's on. Thank you very much. We touched on the roads and construction and safety of intersections. I have one question on Ash and Anderson. Is that city, or do we?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
so
City of Savannah.
we have nothing to do with that.
No, sir.
No, we're having conversations with them.
We do have a
We are in
conversation.
conversation. In fact, I'll be talking to the city manager this coming Thursday.
If I get one more car in my yard, I'm going.
Well, I don't know if I'm gonna stop no car from coming in your yard now, cause somebody gotta learn how not to run the stop sign.
Yeah, it's been terrible over there with accidents.
Listen, I agree, I saw it, you
Okay,
know.
thank you, thank
Yeah,
you.
but yeah, we having conversation with the city.
Okay, okay.
All right? Thank you all.
Thank you.